Revit schedule is very robust, and it is impossible for me to show you just how robust it is in just one short video. The goal I'm trying to achieve here today is to at least get you to begin to understand how scheduling works in Revit architecture. Hi, I'm Pisan. If you're an architect or student who is looking to learn or have a better understanding of how to use Revit, I hope that you find this video helpful. Revit is a very powerful software, and part of what makes it powerful is its ability to generate schedule for just about anything that exists within the project. Not only you can use schedule in traditional sense, which is as a reference, you can also use schedule to help you with material takeoff. You can use it to help you figure out how many doors and window per type you need to order for your project, or how much concrete you need to order for your slab. If you really want to get into it, you can use formula to help you calculate how many tons of steel you're going to be using for your project. Obviously, we're not going to have time to go over everything that Revit schedule can do, but I'm hoping that this video will help establish a good foundation and therefore a good starting point for you moving forward. For this video, we're going to use doors and windows schedule as an example, since they are the easiest. And we're going to start by taking a look at what information does schedule need from each component in order to populate or in order to create a schedule. Then after that, we're going to be comparing them side by side to see how they affect each other. I have created a simple door schedule to use as an example for this video. Let's have a look at it. Here is a sample door schedule. Revit used name that was given to parameters to generate columns. Mark, family, type, width, height, level, comments. Those were parameters name. Then it used information entered in each parameter to populate the schedule. Some of the values were generated automatically by Revit, such as mark and level, and the rest of the values were entered by users, such as family name, type, width, height, and so on. Now let's compare the schedule and the plan side by side. I'm going to go ahead and close the title sheet and WT on my keyboard. Before I do that, let me warn you that these can be renamed. And sometimes when you WT or view tile while you're in the schedule view, it changed that name, like so. So be careful of that. WT. For the comparison, I'm going to use door 103 since it is the first on the list. Now let me zoom in toward door 103 in plan view. Select door 103. And on the property palette here, let me just close project browser. Now on the properties palette, the name that you see on the left columns are parameters name, and the values that you see on the right columns are either automatically generated or entered by users. And if you click on the edit type, you will see this pop-up dialog box. And then again, just like what you saw earlier on the properties palette, the left column are parameters name and the right column are values either entered by the user or automatically generated by Revit. Now, what is the difference between the parameters that you can see in properties palette and the one that you can see in type properties? The parameters that you can see on the property palettes, those are called instant parameter, and parameters that you can see in type properties, those are type parameters. To my students, you should know the difference between the two types of parameter by now. But if you just joined us and you just started learning Revit, that is a story for another day. Now that that is out of the way, let's have a look at how you can tag all your doors first. So I'm going to close this down and TW to go back. In plan view, I'm going to select all of the door tags and erase them. So now none of the doors are tagged at the moment. So to tag doors, you can tag them one by one, but I prefer to tag them all at the same time. To do that, you will go to Annotate, Tag All, and I only want to tag all doors. So I'm going to click on Door Tags and Apply. And then OK. Now you see that the door tags came back just like the way it was before I deleted it. So the numberings that you see on the doors, those were generated automatically by Revit, and Revit keep track of what number has already been assigned to which door. Now you can change those number, but it becomes a management issue, so I prefer not to change it and let the software deal with it on its own. First, let's take a look at how schedules are created. First, let me get rid of the current door schedule. So I'm going to open up the project browser. Okay, then I'm going to scroll down until I find door schedule, right click, and delete. Now let's take a look at how schedule is created. To create a schedule, you will go to the View tab, and then under Create panel, you will go to Schedules. On the drop-down, select Schedule and Quantities. Then the new Schedule dialog box will, by default, have a filter list that shows everything. You can filter out the discipline that you don't want to see, otherwise the list is really long. Okay, so since we're going to be creating a door schedule, I'm going to filter out everything but architecture. But you can leave, you can leave it all. Select it if you'd like, but I'm doing this just to simplify things. Okay, then on the bottom of the list now is doors. I'm going to highlight that, and the name will be assigned automatically, door schedule. You can rename this if you'd like. I'm going to leave it just the way it is and make sure that schedule building component is checked. Then OK out of it. In this dialog box, you can pick which information do you want to use to populate the door schedule. So I'm going to start with mark. Highlight mark on the left column, then push it to the right by clicking on Add Parameters. Then I will select Type, and then Family, and then Width, height of the door, and just for fun, we're going to add level and comments. Now, the order of the parameters that you see on the right, that will be the order of the schedule that you will see as well. So the top items will be on the left-hand side, and it'll work its way toward the right. Now, if I want to change the order of this, for example, I want the family to come before the type, I could just highlight the family and rearrange it by moving the parameter up or down. In this case, I want it to be before the type, so I'm moving it up. And if for some reason there's an item on the right side that's not supposed to be there, or you add it there by mistake, you can just highlight and then push it back by clicking on this red arrow here. And that's how you get rid of it. All right, in this case, I want to have comments on the right hand side, so I'm going to move it back. And then you can OK out of it. Now you have the schedule. Now you can see that mark is on the left column and comment is on the far right column. And on the dialog box that we saw earlier, mark was on the top of the list and comment was on the bottom of the list. So the order in which these parameters come has to do with how you arrange it in the other dialog box. Now, this table that you see here works similar to any spreadsheet software that you have used before. You can resize the column, and you can further customize the font and the alignment, which we're going to be talking about toward the end of the video. For now, we're going to drill down on how it works and how making the changes on the schedule affects what you see on the floor plan. Now I am going to open both views at the same time, the door schedule and level 1. So I'm going to careful to just highlight level 1 first and type WT so that I don't accidentally rename the parameter. Now I'm going to pan so that we can see door 103 and select on the door 103. Let's see how they affect each other. So mark is an instant parameter, so it should show up right here without having to click on edit type. So I'm going to scroll down until I can see mark. Now, since mark is an instant parameter, all doors should have a different number assigned to it. You can change the number here. For example, if I want to change this to 104, which I know for the fact that it already exists right here, it's going to give me an error message, but it will allow me to do it anyway, which is kind of defeat the purpose. Since these two doors may be of the same type and same family, but they may have a different locking mechanism which you want to be able to assign separately. Now, if I rename this to 101, for instance, I look on the list, it doesn't exist there, but 101 may be associated with the door that hasn't been inserted into the project yet. So for me, I prefer to just let Revit handle it. But if you're going to rename it, just be careful when you rename it so that you don't assign the same door number to two different doors. Now let's take a look at the B column here. Family. This is the name of the family. So if you created the family yourself and you save it under a certain name, that is the name that is going to show up here. So when you create those families, be mindful about the name that you assign to those family files. Now, some of these families may be a default family that came with Revit and you just don't want that name. Can you change it afterward? The answer is yes, and I will show you how to do it later in this video. The next column, which is the C column, this is the type. So let me go back to the plan view and highlight that door 103 again. Okay, so the name of 103 is single flush and the type is 800 by 2100. That's consistent with what you see here and there. And if I click on this drop down menu, single flush, 800 by 2100. So again, the name that you see under type is the name that you assign to your family type. The next column, column D, 800, and column E, 2100. These are type property. These control the width, the actual width and the actual height of the door. So I need to click on edit in order to see it. That's the 800 that you see width, and that's the 2100 that you see on the right hand side for the door height. For the remaining two columns, levels and comments, those are instant parameters since you can have two doors of the same family and the same type exist in two separate levels. So let's take a look. If I scroll down or maybe up, you can see that that is level 1. That's where this particular door 103 exists in the project. Now, as far as comments, you can write a comment here or you can write a comment there. I'm going to comment on here. and then apply. And then if I go back to schedule, you see that comment over there. And if I add it in the schedule, come back to the floor plan, click on 103, the comment changes in this view as well. So they're linked to each other. One last thing that I want to show you as far as how they work with each other is this. If for some reason you're looking for door 105, I know you can see it there on the screen, but what if you can't see it? You cannot find it. You can open two views at the same time and find a 105 over here on the list, highlight it, and up here under the ribbon, you can have it highlight in model. If you click on that, it will highlight it on the floor plan. But if you want to see it in other views, you can click show, and it's going to open other view for you to see. Now, in my experience, this almost never works. So my workaround is I have a view that I expect to see what I'm looking for open before I click highlight it on the model. So I'm just going to close out of it. Okay, now let me just close all of these views. And now we're back. Okay, let's do that again. If I'm looking for door 103 and I just have a difficult time finding it, I just have to open up the schedule, highlight, and then highlight in model. And it'll take me there. I'm not going to do that show again because it's silly. So I'm going to just close out of it. There's door number 103. Next, we're going to be looking at how to add schedule onto sheet and how to customize its look. So let me get rid of the floor plan and start a new sheet. I'm going to right click, new sheet, and I'm going to just accept the default. So here we have a new sheet. To add schedule onto a sheet, you just have to browse on Project Browser under Schedule and Quantities. Find the schedule that you want to add, in this case, door schedule. Just click and then drag it onto the sheet. Second click to confirm its location. And there you have it. Let me zoom in. You can move it around if you have it highlighted. You can change the width of each column here. Or if the list is getting too long and you kind of run out of room on the bottom, then you can break it up. If you drag this control down, it'll shorten on the right side. And if you push it up, it'll lengthen it on the right side as well. And you can just keep breaking it up as many as you want. Okay? And if you want to put it back, just grab this move and then put it under the previous one. Make sure you grab the move. And that's how you add it back. Now let's take a look at how we can customize the look of the schedule. So I'm going to WT this so that we can see the door schedule view and the door schedule on sheets at the same time. Okay, let me pan. And let me just kind of change the look. And you can kind of see how it affects the other view. And I'm doing this just so that we can see everything. And I apologize, I'm on a laptop, so my screen is really small. Next, let's take a look at how we can change the parameter name on the schedule. And by changing the name here, you're not actually changing the parameter name as it was assigned originally on the component or on the family. For example, Mark, if I want to change it to something else, I can do that and it changes there as well. Or if I just want to capitalize everything, we can do that. As you can see, changes made on the right affects the way it looks on the left as well. Now let's take a look at how we can further customize the look of the schedule. So I'm going to be on the door schedule view, and the property here on the left hand side is the property of that view that is currently selected. If I scroll down and I click any of these edit button, okay, I'm just going to start with fields. Okay, it's going to take us to this dialog box, and the reason why I said you can just click any one of these is because you can see that these tab up here is corresponding to what you're seeing over here. So it doesn't really matter what you pick. I can be picking, selecting this edit, and if I want to go back to fields, I can go there as well. Now, you should be familiar with this because we saw this before when we created the schedule for the first time. So over here are the list of the fields that are available for you to use as part of the schedule. So you can tell that there are many that you can add. For example, if some of the door is a fire rated door and you want to identify how many minutes or how many hours of fire rating that door is, you can just select and add it to the other side. I'm not going to do it. Okay, now let me move this to the left a little bit. I'm going to skip filter for now and just jump to sorting and grouping. Now we can have this sorted whichever way that we want. You can use mark as the main sorting and ascending or descending, or you can use the family name for sorting and grouping as well. Okay, so I'm going to start with mark, and then when I click OK, it's going to reshuffle this in the ascending order. Now you can have more than one sorting and grouping rules that applies to this schedule view. So if I go back to sorting and grouping here, I can add more to it. I can have first sort by mark, then by family, and then by something else. But at that point, it might be too much that it doesn't make any difference whatsoever. So I'm just gonna do 2 and see if it's going to make any change for me on the right hand side here. So I'm gonna OK. Looks like there's no change at all. So I'm just gonna get rid of that and change it to none. Now let's see what formatting does for us. So I'm gonna click here. Over here, we can further customize the way our schedule look. So whenever there's number, I like to have the number be center justified. So marks are numbered. So I'm going to change the alignment to center. And for type, I'm just gonna leave it the way it is. For width and height, I'm going to have it center justified. And you see the number change from left justification to center justification. Like so. Lastly, let's take a look at the appearance. Graphics control lines around the text, and text control the text sizes and what to show and not to show. So let's take a look at grid lines. First, let me move this dialog box to the right. Grid lines, if you uncheck, there will be just text without the grid. And grid line in headers, footers, and spacers will control whether or not you want to see grid line between these spacing, and sometimes you tally up the number of components, then you have a footer, and if you want to see grid line there. So let's take a look at what it does. So I'm going to uncheck this, and that becomes disabled because we have no grid line. Okay, then I'm just going to OK out of it. Now we don't have the grid at all. All right, let's go back to appearance. I'm going to check that back and I'm going to leave this as thin line. Over here, you can change different line weights and line types. Okay, I'm going to keep it at thin lines, and I'm going to add grid in header, footers, and spacers. And we should see grid added in this area here that wasn't there before. Okay, now if I uncheck, this should be just a blank space. Like so. So back to appearance. What I usually like to do is I don't like to have this gap in between. So I'm going to uncheck blank row before data. That should take care of the gap. And I would like to have an outline around my schedule. And usually I want it to be a thicker line. So I'm going to check that. And instead of thin lines, I'm going to assign medium lines. And then OK out of it. Now that gap disappear. And if I zoom in, you will see two different line weights, thin and medium. Now let me zoom back out. Now we can take a look at the text portion of the appearance. I'm going to make sure that the door schedule is active so that the property will be the property of the schedule. Notice that if I have the unnamed sheet activated, this property here will be the property of the sheet. So I just want to be clear on that. So I'm going to be in door schedule and then click on appearance. Now we have show title and show header. This is title, and the parameter names, those are headers. So if you uncheck both of them, then all you have is the data. So that doesn't make any sense. So I will have them both show. Now title text, which is the door schedule, you can control the text size by selecting different sizes for the text. Now, the file that I'm using right now as an example is the file that came with the software. So it has the unit set as metric. So that's why we see the millimeter. So, but you can change the text sizes here. Right now, it is set as schedule default. So if you wanted to have a different size, then we can just pick one from the list. I'm going to pick 3.5 millimeter. That's very small, but let's take a look. Okay, that's a little bit bigger. But I think it looks a little bit nicer than the default. What I want to do next is I want to change the text size for the header and the body. I want the header to be a little bit bigger than the body. So let's do that. Appearance. I know now that 3.5 millimeter looks like that. So perhaps I would change the body text and change it to 2.5 millimeter. And that is a little bit smaller. I think I like that better. Now I'm going to close the door schedule. And now I'm back on the sheet view. So let me adjust the sizes of the table. Okay, so if I want to get rid of this thicker spaces here, I just have to expand this column to accommodate the entire type names. Now before we move on and generate the window schedule, I said to you earlier that I will show you how to rename the family. So just in case that we want to rename one of the family or more than one if you want to. For example, the M_double-flush. Perhaps we just want to change it to double flush. And instead of 1730 by 2134 mm, we might just want to just get rid of the M. So let's take a look at it. So on the project browser, if you scroll all the way down until you see families, go ahead and expand that. And I know that this is a door schedule, so the name should be under the doors category. I'm going to expand that as well. I'm looking for M double flush. All right. I'm going to rename this. So right click and then rename. I'm just going to get rid of the M underscore and then delete. Once I click enter, the name should change there. Now I'm going to rename the type, expand the double flush, and rename this. And it got renamed there as well. Now very quickly, just to finish off this video, I'm going to show you how to create a window schedule. So under view, again, schedules, schedule and quantities. Now for some reason, I have the filter set to architecture, and if you scroll all the way down, you cannot find windows. For some strange reason, window is grouped under mechanical. So I'm going to check mechanical and then scroll all the way down until I can find windows. Click on that, click OK, and it's going to take us to this dialog box again. That should look familiar to you by now. So this time I'm going to add type mark, family, type, width, height, sill height, level, and comments. Now this is the order that I want to see it, so I'm just gonna click OK and get out of it. Here we have the window schedule. To add the window schedule onto the sheet, we'll just do the same thing as we did earlier with door schedule. Go to the sheet that you want to add the schedule to. On the project browser, scroll until you see schedule and quantities. If it is collapsed, just go ahead and expand it. Find the window schedule, click, and then drag it onto the sheet. Notice that it's going to try to align to the previous schedule. Now we want to change the look of the window schedule to match the door schedule. So we can do it the painful way by just repeating what we have done earlier with the door schedule, or we can just go back to the door schedule, create a view template for it, and then apply it to the window schedule. So this is how it's done. So I'm going to double click on the door schedule, and it's going to open up door schedule view. Now in door schedule view, if you go to view tab over here under view templates, click on that and click on create template from current view. And then I'm going to name this doors and windows schedule. And then I'm just going to leave it the way it is and OK out of it. Note that only the appearance portion of the schedule is copied. Everything else we still need to go back and reconfigure. Now go back to Windows Schedule and then apply the view template to it by just going to the property and over here under view template. Right now it has none assigned to it. If you just click and expand, then you see door and window schedule. Select and click OK. Now if you go back to the sheet view, the appearance should look identical with the door schedule as far as the line type, text sizes. Now we're going to adjust the column width. Now for the type mark, width, height, and sill height, I want those numbers to be center justified. So I'm going to have to go to the schedule view. Double click Windows Schedule to get to Windows Schedule view. Then under formatting, type mark, I'm going to change that to center. Oops. Let me just change everything. Type mark, width, height, silt height, and then OK. And that's it. Now you may be wondering, what is the difference between mark and type mark? Mark is a unique number that was assigned to each door or each window by Revit. And type mark is a unique number that Revit assigned to each type of the family. For example, if you have two single flush door of exactly the same size and you assign a type mark reference to it, those two doors will share the same number. But if you assign mark reference to it, those two doors, even though they are of the same family, they are of the same type, they will have two different reference number. And why would you use mark and why would you use type mark? You will use mark in case those two identical doors one may have a hinge on the left, one may have the hinge on the right, one may have a privacy lock, and another one may have a security lock. So for that matter, you want to have two unique reference. So on your schedule, you can specify two different types of hardware for those door of the same type. Now this video is over 30 minutes, but we barely scratched the surface on what schedule can do. So I encourage you to kind of play around with the schedule and explore to see what else it can do. And I promise you it can do a lot more than I'm showing you right now. Good luck, and I hope you find this video helpful. I will see you in the next video.